What is going on, everybody? A huge game today. Miami Hurricanes, Louisville Cardinals. I want to get this pregame show kicked off in just a little bit. I want to make sure everybody jumps on a little bit, give people a little bit of time to jump on. But just real quick, if you guys want all the up-to-date information, check out InsideTheU.com. Plenty of articles, breakdowns, things like that, previews, different other things to look for. You can always check those out. Also, if you didn't see the live stream last night that we did, the full game simulation between Miami and Louisville on the video game section called ITU Games. You could watch the channel right now. Check that out. I think we had a good discussion. It was interesting to see how that one panned out. Real quick, shout out to Hurricane Logan. Glad you're here. I want to get into some things, and we're going to kind of basically the way I want to do this show is show you guys some clips from practices on different players and whether it's offense or defense, and we could talk about different subjects like that. Also, I think that's good to maybe get a look at some of these guys because we didn't get a strong look of practice clips in the fall. So there's some stuff from the spring that I'm just kind of revisiting a little bit. I want to get into that as well. Obviously, big game. Once again, I want to get right into this real quick. And let's just get right into it, actually. You know, I think the big thing that you're looking at with the Miami Hurricanes tonight is De'Aaron King in the passing game. Taking a look at some clips here. Again, this is from the spring. And I think my opinion from watching De'Aaron from the first game, maybe some things that I saw from him at Houston and also in practices, was that I think the passing game is going to come along in the sense that I think there were some throws that were missed. I think there were some connections that were missed. And they didn't need to rely on the passing game in that first game against UAB. That's why you saw the numbers where, you know, the 52 rushes, the 26 passing attempts as a team. It was working with the run game, but I think tonight, I think without question, they've got to get that balance going with the passing game, with De'Aaron King connecting on his receivers. And I think if you're looking for a guy to really maybe break out tonight, I think pay attention to Mike Harley, number 3 from Miami. And I say that because Mike has talked a lot about their connection in the offseason. He feels like this is the tightest he's been with a quarterback since he's been at Miami. This is his 4th year, and just feels like, you know, it looks like he's in store for a big year. And I feel like a lot of people may be sleeping on Mike a little bit. And that's partly because, you know, you want to see the other guys break out even more. You want to see D. Wiggins or Mark Pope finally come out and have one of those big years. But I think definitely keep an eye on Mike Harley tonight. Works out of the slot. And one of the things I asked Mike recently about working out of the slot was, you know, just some things that he sees when he gets to the line of scrimmage. And he says basically, the things that he said real quick was he notices a coverage and then also looks at De'Aaron for a checkoff or a certain play call, you know, if De'Aaron wants to see something different. So he's automatically looking not just at the defense. He knows the play call, but he's looking at De'Aaron immediately to see if there's going to run something different. And just thinking about with De'Aaron too, and the reason why I also think that the passing game will come along because they've got other guys, not just Mike, Wiggins and Pope, but look at Brevin Jordan in the passing game as well. I know there was a lot to discuss last week about how he wasn't involved that much in the first half. And I understand that there might be a little bit of concern, but I just don't think that there's a concern because I believe in Brevin's abilities. And I believe that the staff knows what Brevin can bring to the table. So I think they're going to get him involved. I still think it's wait and see about Will Mallory. A lot of people have been talking about him, you know, finally becoming that duo, and Will actually said it himself. He's looking forward to kind of being that duo that they've envisioned when they both signed with Miami a couple years ago. So Will knows he needs to step up. I don't know, because we've not seen it yet, if there's enough room for 2 tight ends to be productive in the same game in this offense or on the field at the same time. And we'll wait and see if that's going to happen. I think right now you're looking at the receivers kind of taking that playing time away from Will, and Will certainly got his snaps last week. He was one of the guys that didn't start that actually had the most snaps. So they are getting him in the game. They've just got to find a way, or he's got to find a way to get open, be more productive. And he's essentially, if you're going to go 2 tight end set, he has to challenge the wide receivers enough where he's a bigger threat than having an extra receiver on the field. So that'll be something to watch for all season long. But I think it'll be interesting to see if Will can get going in this one with the passing game needing to get going. And with De'Aaron King, I do believe it will happen. And also, too, I'm expecting a big game from De'Aaron tonight. You know, I in my predictions, whether it was on the radio or on the website, talking about this game, I always reverted back to De'Aaron King. I think he's the difference maker in this one because of his ability to he's been in big games, but his ability to, obviously you saw the running ability, but his ability to pass the ball as well. Those are the things that lead me to believe that he will have a big game, and they need him to have a big game. Also, he has risen to the occasion throughout his career. So I'm just expecting him to be better than he was last week. And if he's not, I think Miami's going to have a tough time winning this game. I think they need, I know it's a lot of pressure on him because he is just the one guy. There's a lot of other facets of the game that need to be on point as well. I just believe with De'Aric's ability, and you saw it flash a little bit, I just think he's going to be able to take the game to the next level, get the most out of his teammates, and I think it starts tonight against Louisville. If you're looking at a few things to attack at the Louisville defense, I think the one thing that stands out to me looking at some of their analytics, I think you're looking at their linebacker situation. They return guys with Etheridge and Avery, and they've got other, guys there that have played. But 2 of their 3 linebackers actually didn't perform real well last week based on the analytics. Etheridge was okay. Burns was the other one. They have to be better in coverage for them to hold down Miami's running attack, but also the passing attack. And I think that's a way Miami can attack them if there are weaknesses. Burns gives up a touchdown last week when they played Western Kentucky. So maybe there's a way to attack him with Brevin Jordan and other ways in the passing game. But just keep an eye on the linebackers once again. And they do rotate a few other guys, but just keep an eye on that linebacker situation at Louisville. If Miami's able to attack that second level of defense, particularly with Brevin Jordan, maybe Will Mallory as well. But just keep that in mind. And it's going to be so important, not just against the pass, but Miami's running attack. And I think that's definitely something that's going to continue. I just think with what De'Aric can bring to the table, Miami's offense has a chance to really have a big game. And not saying that they were going to put up the 52 that they did last year. It's a different team, different situation for both teams. Sometimes games just get away from you, and Miami is certainly at no place to automatically think that's going to happen again based on how the whole season went last year. So we'll see how this one goes, and Louisville certainly brings back a lot of players, and we will get to that as well. But I just want to real quick talk about the passing game. Definitely drop in the comments. Let me know what you think. You're getting a good look of De'Aric at some workout videos. You saw him in spring ball. This was some of the stuff that he worked out in Houston over the summer, and I thought that was great just to see maybe some of the other things that you didn't see in the spring quite as much. I think with these workout things, I felt like you really got a good sense of his footwork, his ability to throw on the run, and his attention to detail. Those are the things that stood out to me. Once again, I think this is a game that he has to shine, really. I mean, this is why Miami has a chance to have a good season. It's because of De'Aric King, and it starts in a game like this. And I think we'll see how it goes, because it's certainly a formidable opponent. I know you guys are excited about it. Game time 7:30, and I know it should be a good one. And it's a big game for Miami. All of a sudden, this game gets on the schedule, and here we go, first ACC game, and it should be a good one. If you guys have any other questions, I'm glad you're here, Hurricane Logan. If you have other questions, anybody else want to jump in, have any comments or anything, definitely let me know, and we can get to some other things. But there's also some other things to talk about too with Miami's offense. Miami makes some changes there on the offensive line, paying attention to the receiver situation as it moves forward. And I think there's just a lot to get to with this game and what to expect. Is this going to be an offense that is able to be balanced? I talked all offseason about being balanced, and almost to the sense where they're just reminding people they will run the ball. And now we're looking at it one game in, and now it's just kind of wondering, are they only going to run the ball? But I do think they want to achieve that balance. But also what strikes me with the way Rhett Lashley speaks, if it's working and if they're going to stick with it. And I think that you saw that in the first game. I understand maybe they go a little bit more vanilla because you've got ACC games coming up, and that certainly could be a potential. I just feel like whatever it is, whether it's passing or running, they're just going to keep sticking with it and just ride it out regardless of how it goes. Because he's talked so much about having a simpler offense and things like that. So, Martin, what's going on? Glad you're here. Shout out to you. Thanks for the support. I know you're excited about the game. Getting a look at some clips here. These are, once again, this is from spring ball and also fall practices. Just getting a good look here. If you guys hadn't seen these, you can always check out the channel for all these videos, and also use the search ability so you can go back and look at some good things as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and we'll keep this thing going. There's some other videos that I think is good to definitely check out on offense and defense, and there's some other guys maybe you don't hear too much about, but some guys I want to take a look at as well. Martin, I still don't understand how Louisville is favored when our offensive line that was weak last year kept Louisville at bay. Atwell was contained after a 80-yard run. Well, yeah, I mean, he had 140 yards, and I know what you're saying, but it's still the ability to reel off 80 yards, you know. He still had, I think, 6 catches, so I know what you're saying, but yet you had a monster game, however you want to look at it, because you can't deny the 80 yards. But, yeah, they definitely did better, I guess, if you want to say that. And I think, too, Martin, he's definitely a threat. I don't think there's any question about it. I think we'll see what happens with this game. Who does Miami want to put on Tutu Atwell? 5'9", Miami native, led the ACC in receiving, school record 1,276 yards, I think was the number that he set. 70 catches, 12 touchdowns, really impressive. And that was his sophomore season. Really breaks out in a big way. And I think it's going to be interesting. Who is Miami going to put on Atwell? You know, and one of the things that stands out to me too with the situation, and maybe it's just you're going into a game like this. I think you guys heard the news with Christian Williams opting out, or I apologize, he decided to transfer after the first game, cornerback. So now he was one of 4 corners who played last game. So Miami's essentially going to go down to 3. And what stands out to me, so they've got Al Blades Jr. and DJ Ivey returning. You saw some mixed results in the first game. And then Corey Couch. He's the interesting one. I think a lot of people are curious about him and curious what he can bring to the team in his sophomore year. And just looking at DeCorey a little bit, real quick here. You know, I think with DeCorey, what stands out to me, just an aggressive player. Even though he's only 5'10", you know, about 175 pounds, he's a guy that can make plays. I think that's the thing that stands out to me about DeCorey. He's a guy that can make plays in the passing game, get his hands on some balls. He has good ball skills. It gives Miami an ability to maybe match up against a guy like Tutu Atwell a little bit better, possibly if DeCorey's up for the challenge. And we'll wait and see. You know, we'll see how it works. Because last game, DeCorey played 29 snaps, and that's the most he's played in his career, mainly as special teams player last year. A little bit mixed results with DeCorey. You know, he does play solid, but then he gives up that big pass play. But on the play, he does force a fumble. So once again, but I know a lot of people are excited about him. Maybe they'll see him. You know, defensive coordinator Blake Baker mentioned that Corey's actually challenging for a starting spot, but we'll see how that works out. And taking a look right here, this is Corey's state championship game in his final year, his senior year at Chaminade Madonna, number 2 out here. And you're seeing him once again tracking the ball well. That's why I wanted to show this film, because it kind of gives you a little bit more look at Corey, his ability to find the ball and finish with interceptions in a big game. So we'll see. And Corey had a pretty solid fall. Had an interception there, and you see one right there. So he's definitely a guy that I think has potential. I think he's a guy that Miami should definitely get in there, and he's going to get his opportunities. There's no question about it. It's just a matter of who is he going to guard? Is he going to be mainly just that third corner, or can he really rise up and possibly challenge for a starting spot? I think that's the biggest thing when watching DeCorey, and we'll see how it goes. Another good interception by DeCorey, and that's the thing. When the ball's up there, you've got to come down with it. You know, and last year with DJ Ivey had 3 interceptions, which led the team, and Al Blades Jr. had 2. So you'd like to see those numbers kind of, you know, get closer to that 4 or 5 mark, and we'll see. And the one thing that also stands out to me about DeCorey Couch, I asked Mark Pope about him before the season started, what's it like going against him, and he said, you know, he's a guy that's aggressive, and he's a guy that plays hard. He said, don't let the size fool you. And those are the things you like hearing about a guy at any level. And I think that was good praise for somebody that competes against him. And I think that's the thing, too, just because we talk about his size. You know, I think it's still something to it's good that he's aggressive, and I don't think it's a big detriment. But the thing is, with that size, Miami wants their defensive backs to tackle. So that's definitely a key part for DeCorey. And that might be a reason that they're definitely going to keep an eye on that situation and maybe keep those other guys in place if they are tackling. And Corey just has to be really good, really solid when he gets his opportunities to either tackle, make plays in the air, and we'll see. Maybe he is going to get that challenge against Tutu Atwell. And the reason why you might say that is because of the size. A little bit smaller of a corner from Miami, with Al Blades, a little bit taller, same way with DJ Ivey. And you're thinking maybe Corey with the matchup on the size might be a little bit better, in particular with him. And also because they've got Kirkpatrick, who's, 6'2", 210, a big receiver. So maybe you'd like a bigger corner on him. And obviously Braden Smith had a good game as well. He's about 5'10", 190, like a solid, build. So maybe they shift Blades to him or a different guy. But I think the biggest thing is the Kirkpatrick thing with that size. Do you want Couch on him, or do you want to have Couch track Atwell, or do you just kind of match up? And it'll be interesting to watch because Miami typically just kind of has their corners guard whoever comes out to their way. It'll be interesting if they track Atwell around with a particular receiver or particular corner. Just one of those things to watch for in the game. And I feel like we'll kind of know early how Miami's going to guard him, and obviously they can make adjustments as well. Want to get a few more people. Glad you're here. Casey, what's going on? Definitely drop in some scores. If you have some score updates, definitely drop in. I think a lot of people would like to see those as well. So definitely if you got some score updates. I know the UCF Georgia Tech game is going on. I know that's a big one. People are very interested to see Georgia Tech after their win against Florida State. And then obviously with UCF, definitely a lot of people are always intrigued what's going on in Orlando with them. So Martin, here we go. Yes, Christian Williams gone, Avante injured. That's Couch to man up. Yeah, and that's the thing. Last week, Couch did get that playing time over Christian. 29 snaps to 8, so he was already ahead of him. But now, and that was my big question to Manny this week was, is there an opportunity for a fourth corner to have playing time in this defense? Christian only had the 8 snaps, but essentially Isaiah Dunson and Marcus Clark, 2 freshmen who did not play, they're next on the depth chart, 4 and 5 on the corner spots there. Will we see those guys? He actually mentioned Dunson, gave him some praise. That's interesting. And he mentioned Brian Ballum, who's still at safety. I know there was a little bit of question. Maybe he's playing corner, but he's still at safety as far as I've been told. And Marcus Clark performed well in fall camp. So maybe he's a guy, although Dunson was mentioned by Manny Diaz instead of Clark. So I think maybe if you're looking at it, you'd have to say Dunson would be that next man at this point. But based on Manny's comments, it definitely doesn't sound like those guys are going to get in. I think they're going to roll the 3 corners. I think the 8 snaps that Christian got are just going to be distributed to those 3 guys. Maybe another guy, maybe Dunson gets in, but I think they're going to look at rolling with the 3 corners, and they've got the 3 safeties as well. Keep those in mind. And they've got 2 strikers in Gilbert Frierson and Keontra Smith, who were natural defensive backs prospects. So they're probably going to roll with those 8 guys, if I had to guess, based on, with the coverages and things like that. But it'll be interesting to see if Louisville's thrown out, 4 receivers, those kind of things. What will Miami do? Will they bring a corner down or bring a safety down? Will they take a linebacker out? That kind of thing. It'd be interesting to just kind of watch that. It feels like a big difference between a Christian Williams, the trust that they had in him, compared to Dunson. But the bottom line is Williams is out, and maybe Dunson is that guy. And we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And the biggest thing, too, is if something's not working early, whether it's matchups with Outwell or Kirkpatrick with the size, Miami's going to, if they're going to have to change whether they're bringing jams at the line with the man coverage, or if they want to back off a little bit, play a little bit more off coverage. Basically, some in-game adjustments will be interesting to watch. Pay attention to the first quarter with that and maybe see how things work out in those first 2 to 3 drives for Louisville, particularly if they're able to get going with their offense. Who else do we got? Let's go, Canes. I like that you're here. Your average. Okay, we need some score updates. Casey, hopefully drop some score updates here. We got Maurice. Yeah, Maurice is still here. You're expecting a blowout. I think a lot of people are thinking that because of last year, because of what happened, and not a lot of respect given to Louisville, which you can understand. Although the only thing is Miami didn't have a great season. It just happened to have like their best game practically against Louisville. So it is what it is, and we'll see Also, I think the big thing too is Louisville, if they've made true adjustments to their defense, which is expected by Manny Diaz. He really praised their defense, felt like they were playing with more confidence. I think what starts out when you're watching Louisville's defense, particularly last week, their safety number 3, Russ Yeast, graded out the best on Pro Football Focused. He's been a guy that's played a lot for them. He's a guy that's really solid in the back end. So definitely keep your eye on where number 3 is if you're Miami on offense. So definitely just a guy to watch for if you're looking for Miami. I already touched on the linebackers a little bit. They've got a couple defensive tackles that are back. But definitely there could be some ways to still attack Louisville's defense. But I'd be surprised if Miami puts up another 50 spot on them. What else do we got? Matt P. Worried about the busted plays on defense, and that's about it. King and the offense must have it together. I agree with you. They've got to have it together. There's no doubt about it. The busted plays, what you're talking about is those explosive plays, and Louisville certainly has the ability to do that because they've got the guys at running back, Javian Hawkins, 3rd in the ACC in rushing last year, number 10, and then Hassan Hall, 19, solid back. He's another guy that can really provide a nice little boost for their offense, in addition to Mikhail Malik Cunningham. He's gone by a different name, his middle name or his first name over the years, in case you're curious about that. But Cunningham, number 3, dynamic player at receiver, or at quarterback, I apologize. And then at receiver, mentioned the guys with Kirkpatrick, Braden and Tutu. So they've got guys Ford at tight end. Martin is there as well. And then an offensive line with some returners. So I think that's what you're looking at with Louisville. John's here. That's awesome. 42-17 Canes. I think you'd like to see that. Everybody would be okay with that. If you saw the live stream that we did last night on the simulation, got to check that out. See how that one ends up as far as the score and maybe some guys that made plays. I think that was pretty cool. Definitely want to keep those things going. A lot of people seem to like that. So yeah, Tommy's here. Shout out to Tommy. What's going on? Let's see if we have some more clips here. Taking a look at some things. I want to kind of go back to the offense a little bit. Just taking a look at a guy that I think that'll be interesting to see how it goes with him. And that's Ja'Kai Clark. Miami made the announcement that he's going to start at left guard today this week. They made the announcement after the first game. Usman Traore gets that first career start against UAB. Clark started 12 games at right guard last year. Only played 3 snaps. Looking at it here, number 53. But they made the move to go with Clark. I found it interesting. Basically, asked a few questions to Rhett Lashley about that. And one of my question to him was, was there any thought of making a change during the game, essentially because Clark only got the 3 snaps? If Traore wasn't playing well, why didn't they make or did they think about making the move? But basically, it just felt like Usman he earned the start, the ability to play, and it was going well, particularly with the run game. So he just didn't feel like it was time to make a move, and you can definitely understand his thought process with that. But basically, just also learning about Rhett Lashley, just kind of seeing the type of coach he is, listening to him, watching him make moves with certain things. So definitely, that's the big news for Miami. That's the biggest change on offense. So Ja'Kai Clark inserting in, taking a look at some spring clips once again, And yeah, so I think that's good. And we'll see. I feel like also, too, with Ja'Kai, he was also worked in at center a little bit, but basically just working at guard mostly, and this is his best opportunity to start. So he gets in there and starts at left guard. I said going into the season that I felt that the left side of the offensive line was one to watch. With John Campbell getting the start at left tackle, they feel okay about Campbell. And then on the right side, you got to feel good if you're Miami with Scaife, who needs to play better. He didn't grade out very well in the first game. He's got to play better, engage more on blocks. And then Jared Williams as well at right tackle, who graded out the best of the offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus, although center Corey Gaynor earned ACC Offensive Lineman of the Week. So there are some positives with the line, even though they are making this change. So once again, just getting a look at Ja'Kai a little bit. And 2, one of the things that stands out to me too, Ja'Kai actually added weight, some strength in the offseason, a little bit bigger than he was a year ago. You kind of viewed him as the next center at Miami, but he did enough last year to earn the start at guard and held on to it all season long. So He's a guy that I assume he's going to be looking at this opportunity as not a situation where he wants to go back and forth with Usman, but basically once he's in, he's going to start the rest of the way. And that's kind of what happened last year. He didn't start the first game, and then he started the next 12. So just definitely something to watch for with Miami's offense is that left side with Usman Traore. Once again, Louisville brings back a couple defensive tackles. They had some guys play well. Clark's one. They had some guys there, but it'll definitely be interesting the way Louisville likes to run their defense and the way Miami still wants to attack with the offensive line, particularly with the running game. Zachariah's here. What's going on? Shout out to you. Can't wait for that FSU game. I know, but this one tonight is so big. It's so important for this one because you've talked all offseason about how things are different and better. De'Aaron King's going to make a big difference, Rhett Lashley, and the offense, and it starts tonight. You want to see that victory tonight. If Miami wants to actually contend to get to the ACC championship game, they've got to beat a team like Louisville tonight. Again, only the two teams. There's not going to be much like backdoor, a division being weak or anything like that this season because there's not two divisions. It's just the top two teams based on their winning percent advance to the ACC championship game. And you got to figure a team like Louisville. Right now, my ACC has 7 teams that are ranked. So there's a lot of teams in that competing for essentially, you feel like it's that second spot with Clemson. I can't imagine Clemson dropping below the top 2. Although anything can happen. And if you guys watched the Dynasty series I did in the offseason on NCAA football, you saw that Miami played Louisville in the ACC championship game because Clemson, Trevor Lawrence got hurt for most of the year. And so Louisville went ahead and won the division. So they definitely, the game felt good about Louisville and their players. So just kind of interesting to see how things work out. But basically, there's a lot of teams in that group kind of really fighting for that spot. Notre Dame is now in the mix. You're looking at them. Pitt just got ranked this week, so they're trying to stay in that mix. So it'll be interesting to see. And you can't look at. You're just, with strength of schedule and everything, it's just the way it plays out. And when you have the games on your schedule, you've just got to win them to make sure you stay ahead of the pack. And it starts tonight. There's no doubt about it. And Louisville definitely feels like they've got all the pieces. A lot of those offensive guys are back. They feel like another year in the defense with their coach. So they feel like they're going to take a jump from what they did last year as well. So both teams kind of similar in that regards. And then that's kind of why you see these guys, both teams kind of ranked similar spots, 17 for Miami, 18 for Louisville. What else do we got here? Tommy Sullivan, I saw Louisville highlights. I don't think we have a serious problem. I'm glad you feel confident. The only thing I would say is those guys can make plays. I don't think there's any question about it. And Tommy, I think if you're the flip side, if you saw Louisville's highlights, I would assume if Louisville saw Miami's highlights, maybe they would be saying similar things because the passing numbers weren't there. And they've got to figure they've got a little bit more ability than UAB, a little bit more confidence that they do. Although UAB was still solid, they just don't have that respect because they don't play in that big-time conference, and they're not a big-name program. So, but Louisville, without question, has to step up on defense as well. Yeah, Tommy, that is interesting about Notre Dame. It's definitely a weird situation. There's no doubt about it, but it is what it is. And, Miami does not have that matchup against Notre Dame this season. So that's why games like this are so important, because when you face those seemingly those upper half teams, coming away with a win in that matchup definitely helps you out quite a bit. And you can't afford to take losses. So we'll see how it goes, though. And particularly, Miami's got Clemson coming up. Miami plays Florida State next week, and I know that there's going to be questions, and you're not expecting much from Florida State, but it's still a rivalry game, and so we'll still see what happens with that one. So, Martin, yep, Ja'Kai very cerebral. I think the thing, too, with Ja'Kai a little bit is just he's a guy that came from a high school program that produced a ton of talent. He's been used to playing, with expectations. I think that's the biggest thing when I see guys that play in high school programs like that, either competing for state championships or competing for scholarships or just competition in practices every day, whether it's against a defensive lineman who's going to a Power 5 school or competing with other offensive linemen that are also looking for scholarships and looking to take your spot. So I think that's one thing I'll say about Ja'Kai, that I like his makeup in the sense of his background coming into before he even got to Miami. It just kind of, he's always been, or he's been in that spotlight, that competition spotlight. And he's a guy that, I feel like you can make a quick adjustment. I think that's what you saw last year is he made that adjustment to college pretty quickly. You know what? We don't talk about him very much, and I definitely would like to get more information. And it's a little tough with how things work with interviews with the team, but I am definitely very interested in Zion Nelson. We've almost brushed him aside so much that you kind of forget about him. But here's a guy that started all 13 games at left tackle, and now he's not starting this year. They move him to guard a little bit, and now they're going with Clark over Nelson. And, they've got Zion listed as a backup. I just find it very interesting. I'd like to know more about it. I think one thing to point to is, he did increase his weight quite a bit, and maybe it got to be too much. I'm not sure yet because we've not been able to been out there and see them at practices. And they've not adjusted, but maybe that's something to think about. But I just would like to know more about it, and hopefully I can get some answers for you guys soon about what's going on with Zion, because he's a guy that, kind of got pushed aside quite early, in spring ball and then fall camp, and then all of a sudden we're just not talking about him. I think it's a very interesting situation that not only did he get moved off left tackle, but there's no spot for him on the starting offensive line. And they make a move, and he's not considered for that position as well. So just definitely something to keep in mind and something to watch for. Also, John Campbell's got to continue to play well to make sure that he doesn't lose his spot. But they seem to really like John, the way they talk about him. So I definitely think at this point that they're not going to make a move. Matt, Liberty beat Western Kentucky. Yeah, that's very interesting. What was the score of that one, Matt? I haven't been able to check. I've been working on this, working on some other things. Definitely drop the score there. John, what's the quarter of the UCF game? And if you know how the scores happen, definitely curious if you have the information, and if not, that's okay. But definitely if you have it, it'd be great to see. Tommy, what's going on? That's the thing. Never overlook Florida State. And it felt like a few years ago, Florida State was saying that about Miami when Miami was not at its peak and they were struggling, and Florida State still wanted to make sure that they were on point for those games. So I think you're right. I think too, Tommy, where you're looking at that matchup where they, regardless of who wins, it definitely just becomes a tighter game. Even if you're expecting one team to really win by a lot, or in that matchup, it definitely feels like a lot of closer battles. Even if the favored team does go ahead and win, it just definitely feels like it gets a little tighter. So we'll see. Yeah, not a blowout, no doubt, but 30-24, you're still looking at a good win if you're Liberty. So that's impressive. Very curious about their coaching situation. Anytime you see programs like that do really well and kind of surprise people, it definitely, I feel like that's when you start really paying attention to the coaching situations, either coordinators, who's really doing well. And I know it's a one-game sample size, but maybe things are going. I just don't know a lot about Liberty football, but just definitely something to think in mind. Second quarter. Okay, there we go. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Goldwire's here. What's going on? Goldwire's another, I was talking about defensive tackles. Louisville's got a defensive tackle by that name. Tony, what's going on? Checking in from Atlanta. What's going on? Hopefully you go to Fat Matt's. I don't know if it's open. I just really love that place. I really love Atlanta. So shout out to Atlanta. And yeah, it's always tough. It's always tough when not able to do as much as you want, but you guys know all that. But anyways, CJ Canes is here. Always great. I say tuning in, always hitting the like button. I definitely appreciate that. I haven't even said anything, but yeah, if anybody wants to take a quick little break, hit the like button. It definitely helps. And subscribe. I haven't been pushing it as much because we got the 10,000 subscribers. That was such a big goal over the off season, but there's no doubt it's #road to 20K. That is the goal. We got to get to 20,000. I know we can do it because I know there's a ton of Miami fans out there, and I know the only way we're going to be able to do that is if I'm producing content you guys like, and if not, then nobody's going to watch. But also a huge help to everybody that tells you tell your friends about it, or share it, or post it on social media, anything like that. Or but even if you don't do that, hitting the subscribe button and creating interest by the like button, basically with the algorithm of YouTube, it definitely just helps other people get a chance to see what we're doing here. And the big thing is all of the content that you guys help with, with jumping in on the chat and things like that, is definitely really helpful as well. Let's see what other videos we got here. I'll show you guys here. You know what? Let's take a look at this guy here. let's take a look at Jalen Knight. And I know there's a lot of excitement with Jalen. Hold on 1 second here. There we go. That'll work. That'll work. Just takes a little bit here. Doing this on the fly real quick. But basically getting a look at Jalen. Spring ball. The 4 practices he enrolled early. A lot of excitement. People are curious about Jalen in terms of the impact he can make as a freshman. And I think the thing that you're looking at with Jalen is that he can make big plays. And I think that you saw that in the first game. You know, his second carry goes for 18 yards. He reels off a 25-yarder later. I felt like there was some even more potential for him and that he had a great debut. I just think that there's bigger plays to be made, and I think he definitely can do that. I think that you've not seen him yet involved in the passing game. I think he can be, leaking out as a running back and just getting the ball in his hands a little bit more. They have different options that they're going with in the return game, but I think he's a guy that could do that as well. Just taking a look right here, this is a combine. Had a chance to watch Jalen in action and just kind of had my camera glued to him and wanted to get a good look at him. This was him before he got to Miami, and you're seeing the attributes that you like, the quickness, the quick feet, the speed. I think all of those things make you really intrigued about Jalen. And Broward's all-time leading rusher and all that kind of stuff. I just think with all of those things, I think even though he's done so much before he got to Miami, I still think his best football is still ahead of him. I think he's a guy that gets it. I think he understands where he's at. I think he understands how to be successful at the college level. And we'll see tonight if there's even more potential for him either to get carries and things like that. So, and this one right here. So this is in high school. He goes up against Columbus in the playoffs. And what I did was, and all these videos you can see on the channel if you haven't yet, but basically just kind of putting them in one package. But this was a game where he goes up against Columbus in the playoffs. I'm breaking down all of the runs by Columbus running back Henry Parrish, who went to Pitt, and then for Deerfield Beach, Jalen Knight. And so these are all their touches, nothing edited out. I used all their snaps, all their carries every time they touched the ball, regardless if it's a 1-yard stuff or anything like that. So just getting a look at Jalen right there in the red and white. And yeah, I just think with Jalen, he just has a lot of potential, and I know there's a lot of hype and interest in him, and I really believe in him as well. And I don't think it's one of those things where he's just overhyped or anything like that. I think he does have a lot of ability, a lot of things to be excited about. And I want to check real quick. One of the things that's been happening a little bit with the streams is the chat box, and that's why you see this big black box on the screen here. And it's been a little frustrating. And what I've noticed, for some reason, it'll just start working minutes into the show. But I would definitely like to get that thing going, because one of the things that's great about it is for people that watch it back, they can see your comments clearly on the screen. Let's see. I'm going to work on that a little bit. So, yeah, there it is. There we go. Look at that. That's exciting, because I always get frustrated when things don't work out with this, because I want to make sure that everything's on point for you guys, but it looks like things are going well. And it's just one of these things, just kind of getting used to the live stuff and seeing how things work out, and kind of just doing all this on the fly and hopefully getting better. Hopefully, if you guys watched the first live stream over the summer, hopefully you feel like things are getting a little bit better. But definitely what's been helpful is all the support that you guys have been showing. So definitely appreciate everyone. So once again, just kind of looking at Jalen Knight here in high school. If you're just jumping on, showing some clips. Kind of just these guys here. I think we're good here. But just showing these guys from high school or practice clips from the spring. There's some from the fall, but basically just not being able to be out there because of the pandemic. I still wanted to show you guys some of this stuff because, I still think you guys want to see clips of these guys, and maybe you missed it from the spring, or but you still like seeing this, or maybe you haven't seen this clip from Jalen here. Maybe you heard a lot about him in high school, but never really watched one. So just got this thing going here. John, yeah, Jeff Sims looking pretty good for a true freshman. I think the thing is when you're looking at freshmen, that's what we're talking about with Jalen. When you see signs early, it makes you feel like things are just going to get better. And I think that's the thing where you're looking at Sims, what he did in the opener against beating Florida State and all of that. And certainly there's areas for improvement, but if you're starting to see that he's showing signs early, you really feel like as a program, as a team, as a fan base, that things can get better. And I think that's what you're seeing. That's kind of my point with Jalen Knighton as well. Just young guy, you saw flashes last week, or maybe Don Chaney Jr. gets that 33-yard run, but maybe there's some other runs that he could have had. But the flashes are there, and they're there early, so you're really hoping for bigger things. And I know many of you are still looking forward to maybe seeing some other young guys get in the mix a little bit more. Maybe drop in the comments if there's young guys you're curious about how they're doing or where they're kind of fitting in as well. Tommy, I'm worried about our defense this year. Our offense seems to be clicking with the new quarterback and running backs. Yeah, I think the defense is until they prove it, right? I think there were some solid moments against UAB, but a game like this with Louisville having offensive weapons at quarterback, at running back, and at wide receiver, and I still think the tight end has the ability to make some plays there for number 83. But I think all the levels to ability to make plays, I think that really puts a lot of pressure on your defense. One of the things that stands out to me this week, if you didn't see the article I wrote on Al Blades Jr., he talked about he thinks this can be one of the best secondaries in the country. And I'm all for guys being confident. I think it's great. I want to see guys back it up. And that's the big thing. And we'll see tonight. We'll see if the defense can step up. This happens quite a bit. A lot of Miami players always do this every year. It feels like this kind of discussion comes up where they feel very confident in what they have on the team. And they usually, and Blades said it too, it's about us and what we do. And he also said, if we do what we do, I don't think there's anything they can do to really threaten us. And those are strong words because I see it much different. And it doesn't matter what I think, and it depends on how they go out and perform. But I just believe Louisville has weapons, and we'll see tonight, right? If the defense wants to be one of the best secondaries in the country, if they feel like there's no question marks at linebacker, or the defensive tackles, if Nessa Jade Silvera wants to take that jump as a junior finally, if he wants to say it was because of injuries or good players playing in front of him, that's fine. But tonight is such an important game to go ahead and have those performances. All offseason, a lot of this stuff that we do, either as journalists or even as fans, there's a lot of hype and discussion and talk and wondering what if or what's going to happen, opinions and thoughts about what might happen. But in a game like tonight, it's about the results. And I think that's what we're looking to see. Will Miami secondary step up? Will the cornerbacks, Blades, DJ Ivey, Corey Couch, will they be able to settle down the offensive passing attack for Louisville? And certainly it's a full game season. Don't get me wrong. It's not all about just one game. But this is a challenge. And Miami has to rise to that occasion. And I think at linebacker is definitely one of those positions. And maybe that's what you're talking about, Tommy, with the defense. Maybe that's what stands out to you is that linebackers. And I know sometimes towards the end, Quarterman and Pinckney took a little bit of heat from the fan base as it went on, as their careers kind of winded down. But now, you got Bradley Jennings Jr. stepping in. You've got Zach McLeod looking to take that step as a senior. And you're wondering to see how those guys perform, if they can kind of be that solid linebacker core. And I think another guy to watch for is Sam Brooks. And I want to see if we can get some, hold on 1 second here. More clips on De'Eric. Let's see if we can get some other stuff here. What else do we got? I thought I had a clip of the defense, but we'll take a look here at the receivers, but just kind of keep this thing going. But definitely talking about the defense, and I think with Sam Brooks, defensive coordinator Blake Baker was asked, are there reserves that are really challenging for spots for more playing time? And the first name that Baker mentioned was Sam Brooks. Snaps to Bradley Jennings. Bradley had 36 in the first game. Brooks had 26. And Baker said that he felt like, or he feels like that they can challenge that again, that it could be a 50-50 split in this game. We wouldn't be surprised. So basically, Jennings, although he got the start, it sounds like they're definitely keeping an eye on Brooks for making that push. And I think a lot of Miami fans would like to see how the younger guy does. Although it's tough to just automatically push aside Bradley Jennings because he was solid and steady in that first game. I think most people want to see more out of Zach McLeod if you're looking at guys at linebacker. So they're definitely still confident in Zach, and Zach's the guy that was named a captain for the first game, so you definitely feel like that they still believe in him, but he definitely needs to pick it up and play better, be more productive. And it's not to say that it won't happen. Maybe it's one of those things where you look at, I just didn't play much last year, and maybe it's just going to take him a little bit of time. What other questions do we have? CJ Canes, do you think DJ Ivey will start turning his head around this game? I think with DJ, I think it's a couple things with DJ. I think he's at the point where the big plays that are made on him are magnified, right? Like giving up the touchdown and another big pass play were just magnified. And I think with him, I'm not quite sure what everyone expects from him. I just think he's a solid corner. I don't know what we're going to see with him as far as his junior year, if he's going to be able to take that big jump. And I think when you talk about a jump, can he be an all ACC caliber performer? I'm not sure of that. I just think he's just kind of a solid guy. And once again, when I touched on it earlier about performing, tonight's a night for him to have a great opportunity to do well. It's not just about Tutu Atwell. With Des Fitzpatrick there, number 7, I mentioned earlier, 6'2", 210 pounds. It definitely presents a size issue, and maybe that's where DJ can excel. Although last week with Watkins, he was similar in that. Watkins was the guy that ended up getting the touchdown, but Watkins also only had the 2 catches, dealt with a little bit minor injury, and I wasn't exactly sure how the matchups worked out the whole game. Kind of watching, I'd have to look back on definitely how many times he guarded Watkins, but it definitely felt like he was there quite a bit. But we'll see with DJ. Definitely needs to pick up his play. I mentioned earlier with Corey Couch, I feel like he can challenge because I definitely think he, even though he's smaller, I definitely think he's a guy that can make plays on the ball. And ultimately, being a cornerback, it's about preventing or limiting receivers' touches. And I think Corey can present some issues for other receivers. So he's definitely something to watch for. Mason, what's going on? Glad you're here. I got your message last night about the live stream. We weren't able to make it. No big deal. Didn't know if you got a chance to watch it, but glad you're here. I mentioned the other day, I thought you had a game on Thursday. If you did, let us know how it went. Hurricane T2Y is here. What's going on? Glad you're here. Shout out to you. Thanks for the support. What we're doing here is just taking a few looks at some clips from spring ball, some practice clips, but basically just having these run on the background while we talk about the team here. Thought I had some defensive stuff, but mislabeled it, but is what it is. But yeah, defensive coordinator Blake Baker mentioned Sam Brooks. Another guy he mentioned that played well, was Couch as a guy. And also another guy to keep in mind, a young guy, is Jared Harrison Hunt. Defensive tackle, currently slated at that number 4 spot at defensive tackle. So he's on that second unit with Jordan Miller. But as you saw last week, he got solid playing time and they like his abilities. He's a guy that you like in terms of his athleticism. Very intriguing for sure. And he's just a player to watch for there on the defensive line. Number 81, keep your eye on him. I thought number 22, Cameron Williams, played well. You saw him get to the quarterback on some pressures. I thought that was great to see as well. And it's just, once again, while you might not start or have all the snaps, when you get in there, even if it's only 5 to 10 snaps on defense, do something with it. If you get 6 snaps, make a play. Get a pressure, those kind of things. Get up when you have your opportunity. And it might not mean you're going to crack that starting rotation. It just means, you have to be on your way of developing towards when you do get a bigger role, that you are ready to take advantage of it. And I think that's what's important for a guy, especially Cameron Williams, for example. He's not going to start over Jalen Phillips or Quincy Roche this year, but when he comes in, be that solid number 4 defensive end, really prove yourself, really increase your playmaking ability, and when you get your opportunity next season, if you're looking at it for next year, that you are going to be one of those top guys. But there's definitely room for those second line defensive line guys to get plays, get snaps, and then go ahead and go forth and make plays. Just taking a look at a few other things. Want to make sure we get to all the position groups as we're talking here on this pregame show. Definitely debut the pregame show. Last week didn't do 1 and 2, but it didn't work out. So scratch that. Did a postgame show late at night. Not planning on doing that tonight unless something crazy happens or it just becomes just not in the works right now. So definitely appreciate everybody dropping in here on the pregame show. Once again, if you want any more information on the team, check out InsideTheU.com for articles, content breakdown, chat with fans there, and shout out to anybody there that's a subscriber that has jumped on the live stream here. So definitely appreciate everybody that has showed your support with the website. Jamie's here. What's going on? Shout out to you. Glad you're here. I feel like if Ivy starts getting burned, Couch is going to take a spot. I agree. I think without question, Couch is going to get snaps either way, whether he starts or not. There's only 3 corners that they feel comfortable with right now. Couch is going to get playing time because other teams are going to play multiple receivers, and you do need that third corner. So Couch is going to get in there. There's no doubt about that. It's just a matter of how much. And if Ivy continues to struggle, if Blades doesn't, take that jump either, those are 2 guys that could see their snaps change as the season goes on. I think right now Blades is ahead of Ivy in terms of his play. So I wouldn't see that jump right now. I just feel like Couch is going to get his opportunities, and Couch has to make it, take advantage of that. And I think tonight is such a great opportunity. Talked about him earlier. This is a chance for Corey Couch to possibly go up against Tutu Atwell, one of the best receivers in the country, and it's his opportunity to perform and show why he deserves to have that starting spot, to be one of the top guys, not just a third down corner. So I think it's a great opportunity for him because regardless if he's on him, even just for a little bit, I think they'll be matched up at least at some point tonight. And I'll be watching that for sure. 23 to Corey Couch. Keep him in mind for Miami fans. It's all about the U. What's going on? Glad you're here as well. Miami Flip Football, always showing your support. Glad you're here. A lot of fans at Corey Couch. Shaman Abadana, shout out to Broward County. Richard Hill likes Dunson. Richard, if you didn't see it, I put together a workout video Isaiah sent me from the summer. It's on the channel if you didn't get a chance to see it, and maybe I could put that up. But one of the things with Isaiah, just has really good length. Seems like a guy that's going to progress in his career in terms of physical maturity and things like that. And I think he's just definitely a guy. I think about 6'1", good solid range, length, and I don't know when he's going to get his opportunity. I don't know if it happens tonight, but it definitely sounds like maybe he's a little bit ahead of Marcus Clark for that 4th spot at cornerback. So maybe there'll be an opportunity. If not tonight, then definitely maybe at some point this season. You guys have already seen how things have changed, not just with Miami, like with Christian Williams leaving and other things, guys opting out, guys on offensive line, Tate Martell, but just around the country, you're seeing a lot of things happen, and maybe you heard about how things could be different this year, but maybe you're starting to look at it like, okay, if something happens to a cornerback, because if something happens to those top 3 guys, I don't think that they're just going to roll 2 corners and roll their safeties at corner. I think they are going to have to give a guy like Dunson or Clark an opportunity. So definitely keep those 2 in mind as it moves forward. I just don't know if it's going to happen tonight. Martin, unrealistic expectations with them. Yeah, I think that happens with everybody. To be honest, I think to be like, if you want to talk about unrealistic expectations, I felt like that's what happened a lot with Malik Rozier, bringing him up. I think a lot of people just expected him, for some reason, expected him to be even better, but he was a guy that was not highly regarded as a recruit. I think if you looked at it, maybe you didn't expect him to start, and he did, and he did provide some positive moments. Although I know a lot of people seem to be frustrated with him. And I think that's part of the reason. I think there was a little bit of unrealistic expectations with him. Okay, Caleb is here. What's going on? Going to B-Dubs. There we go. I'm curious what you get there. It's always a great place to go. Got to check out those cheese curds, man. That's that Minnesota background in me. But yeah, you got to do that. Okay, what else do we got here? Maurice is here. All kinds of, yeah, this is good. So here we go. We got maybe some other things to talk about. Talked about the quarterback situation. And maybe I'm going to bring up a guy that we don't talk about too much on here, particularly with the game. There's other guys, other situations going on. But just want to give a look, and maybe you guys are curious about it. Maybe you don't know too much, or maybe you missed it. But here's a look at Tyler Van Dyke. He's a guy that, that was considered the number 3 quarterback. Number 3 quarterback, true freshman, about 6'3", 6'4", solid guy in terms of his build. You see him right here, number 19. This is from the spring. He enrolled early. Just talking about Tyler a little bit. Maybe people don't know quite too much about him. One of the things that stands out to me, solid arm, but just a very composed guy. I think that's what we heard from Rhett Lashley too. Doesn't get too high or too low, which you like from a quarterback. And I think you kind of just see that with his demeanor a little bit. He's a guy that's going to use this year to develop. He's not a guy that you expect to get in at any point this season. Maybe in terms of a blowout, but you feel like they'll just go with N'Kosi Perry. Maybe it's just going to be tough for Van Dyke to even get a snap in the game. But one of the things that's going to be really important for Van Dyke this year, because if King does move on after this season, will there be a true battle for quarterback next year? Will they just go with N'Kosi Perry? And I say that because he started 9 games in his career. He's a backup right now. He'd be a senior next year, or junior, depending on how they're going to classify. It'd be his 5th year then. But anyways, just looking at a guy like Van Dyke, he's going to definitely try to put himself in position to be in that mix to start next year. And one of the things that stands out to me, had an article on the site, but Tyler's been watching film with De'Eric after practice throughout the season, and basically just feels like De'Eric's a really good guy to learn from. And I think that's great. I think it's great on both ends. The fact that Tyler's taken advantage to having a quarterback that has played a lot of football, that a guy that has done really well in his career, and take advantage of him, even though they are different style of quarterbacks. And then on the flip side, very good of De'Eric to be able to take that time, willing to take that time to spend with Tyler. Just getting a quick look at him right there. Once again, all these videos are just on the channel, and most of you guys have probably seen them, but if not, giving you guys a look there. But I think he's just definitely a guy to watch for, one of those young guys in the program that you want to see develop this year, even if you don't see him on the field. And I think that there's a lot of guys like that. Only 3 true freshmen played in the opener against UAB, and so there are a lot of young guys to keep in mind. Brother James is here. He's excited. Glad you are. What's going on? Markinsey's here. Awesome. What's up, Chris? Yep. Hit the like button. I appreciate when other people say that, because it's definitely a huge help. Hitting that like button and subscribing, all that stuff is a huge help. And also, maybe I got a shirt. We have new Inside the U shirts. If you guys want to check those out, I'll put one right here. I'm going to pin this one here and show you guys real quick. This is the one I like. It's the Football Beach shirt. You guys can click the link. It's pinned right there. And if you guys could see right here what it looks like a little bit. I'm wearing one right now. I definitely enjoy it. It's definitely a cool design. Shout out to the designers that made it. But if you guys are interested and want to show your support even more to the channel, definitely appreciate you. And that's a way you could do it. The donations have been helpful, but the shirts are a way for you guys to show your support as well. Just want to make sure you guys know about those. Link for that. Other shirts, there's actually a fanny pack if you guys are interested in that, or a hoodie. It's starting to become a little cooler. Certain parts of the country coming up. There's a nice hoodie as well if you guys want to check those out. Those are all at the bottom of the screen, or if you hit that link right there in the chat. Just another way, and another way to support the channel and the Miami Hurricanes coverage that we do. And definitely we appreciate everyone. I just appreciate everyone jumping on this show here, jumping in on the chat, and for everybody that's just watching and kind of seeing the comments and listening and watching these videos, appreciate you as well. What else do we got here? Josiah's here. What's going on? Glad you're here. I know you jumped on last night, so that's great. You're back here again. I know, man. I wish the game was on right now. I know. See, and the reason why I wanted to do this pregame show was because when I'm watching games of teams that I'm a fan of, I always want, or if it's like big games or playoffs, like you kind of just want to soak in as much as possible. You want to see what your fellow fans are talking about all day long, or, just kind of see if there's any new information or if there's anything I can bring to the table in terms of some of the things from the interviews with players and coaches. Definitely try to do that as well. So I definitely know what it's like in terms of getting ready for the game. We're about 2.5 hours out. So it's coming up soon, and hopefully you guys have some good plans for tonight, even though I know many of you wish you could be at the game. I remember going to a game at Louisville, a Miami game at Louisville in 2006. Touched on it last night, and Miami lost 31-7. If you guys remember that game, it's one where Miami threw the ball in pregame warmups, threw the ball up in the air, kind of stomped on the Louisville logo, kind of created a little bit of controversy, and then Miami does that and then goes out and gets blown out. So it was definitely a lot of attention on the program all season long, really, but that game in particular. But I definitely remember the stadium, and Louisville at that time was just kind of up and coming. They had some good seasons with the quarterbacks, and they were starting to make some moves right then during that time, and certainly they've built their program even more as years have gone on since then, particularly with the quarterback situation with Teddy Bridgewater and Lamar Jackson. You guys know all about them if you're from South Florida, but I just definitely remember that game, remember the stadium. It was a lot of fun, and even though the game didn't go well at all, and that's the thing you guys know about sports, you don't get to write the scripts yourself. You just kind of wait and see what happens, and just like we're talking about tonight, maybe things that we'll see and would like to see, kind of curious what it'll happen. What else do we got here? Harris is going to have a great game. Yeah, I think he's definitely a guy to watch for. Cameron Harris at running back. One of the things that you saw in that first game, and only a 1-game sample size, but to me, I felt like we saw a different Cameron Harris. In his first 2 years, maybe there were some flashes. Maybe you're looking at he would have had some bigger runs if it weren't for offensive line or penalties by the linemen as he reeled off big runs. But, you needed to produce, and he did that for sure in the first game. I felt like he was the things that he had talked about all offseason, things that you saw and heard, he backed it up in the first game that he did look better. He looked more physical. He hit the hole hard. He exploded on that run. He took advantage of a mishap there by UAB and reeled off the 66-yard touchdown run. And it wasn't just that run. I felt like he was solid all night. I felt like he was hitting his holes. He had some other, I think he had a 14-yard run and a 15-yarder. So he had some other chunk runs, and I think that was great to see. And he has talked so much about this being a big year for him. And I think a lot of that, not just because he has the opportunity to start and be the top guy, but I think he knows what those running backs behind him can do, and knows that he's got to play well if he wants to hold them off in terms of snaps and playing time. I think Jalen Knighton and Don Chaney Jr. have the ability to perform at a high level as well. And I think Cam knows that, and I think Cam's going to have to continue to do well. One of the things I want to talk about with the running game, one of the things I noticed from watching those big runs, those 15-yarders, the 25-yard, 30, those kind of things, Miami seemed to get a lot of action going on the backside runs with the offensive line either slanting to the left or to the right, and the running backs either on counter plays or just by their instincts, cutting it right early on as soon as they get the ball, seeing that there's not a hole where the line's going, and then hitting the backside and reeling off big runs. Once again, they could be design counters, or it could just be that they saw the play not working out and they decided to hit the hole. But I think that's another thing to watch for tonight. Are they going to be able to excel in the backside runs? Is Louisville going to try to keep a guy staying right there? And I think one of the things that makes it more challenging for a defense is because De'Aaron King, whether if he's holding the ball on some option runs, he has the ability to do different things and hit different pockets. Maybe take advantage of it. If there is a guy trying to stay backside, maybe they can maybe exploit them a different way. Maybe get some rollouts or different things in the passing game. Maybe you hold the ball on a pass as well, and maybe hit that second line of coverage with your tight ends, with Brevin Jordan. Maybe you get some rollouts there, or maybe you move the running backs around a little bit in the passing game as well. Just something to watch for, something I noticed. I think it was a big key in the first game, and if Louisville does try to slow that down, Miami's going to have to find holes going where their line is going. So I just think it's something to watch for, because you want Miami to be able to run the ball with any back and be able to hit on any different kinds of runs or different ways. You don't want to just be one-dimensional or only be able to go up the middle. Or only hit the tackle guard spot. You want to be able to get outside. You want to be able to go inside. Misdirections, whether it's counters or any types of plays that you want to hit, even if it's just a simple dive. You just want to be able to do multiple things in the run game if you do want that to be the stretch. Game time's at 7:30. I made a mention of that at the top of the screen. You can see that. ABC has the coverage. Jamie, what's going on? Okay, condition and discipline, lack of penalties are what really impressed me. Yeah, the lack of penalties, particularly the pre-snap stuff, needs to be limited. I think that's the biggest thing with penalties. I think certain aggressive penalties, they just kind of happen, and I understand you get frustrated because why did you do that? But it's just kind of the way I view penalties. A lot of it is part of the game in terms of the aggressive stuff. I just feel like the pre-snap stuff is very frustrating, whether it's false starts or offsides or motions, those kind of things, delay of game, those kind of penalties I think are very frustrating and hard to process. And I think those are things that we didn't see. And I think that's going to help with De'Aaron King, a guy that's played a lot of football and hopefully has a good understanding of trying to eliminate those negative plays. Mike, what's going on? Turnover chain. Yeah, any predictions, Mike, on what the turnover chain will look like, or maybe what you would like? Maybe you think it's going to be somewhat similar to the touchdown rings with the crib. Maybe they're going to do that as a potential for the pendant there. So, or maybe you've got other ideas, because it's going to be different, whether it's the U, the IBIS, the 305 that they've done in the first 3 years. You're definitely expecting something different tonight. Hopefully tonight. Hopefully we get a chance to see it. What else do we got here? So Mike's expecting 6 touchdowns by De'Aaron King. I'm glad you're excited, Mike. Hopefully we see it. I mentioned earlier with De'Aaron, I just feel like he's a guy that this is going to be why you've heard so much about De'Aaron. Okay, I think in a big game like this, a game where you need the offensive to score points, a game where you need them to be balanced, you need them to excel in the passing game. I don't feel like they can just rely on the run tonight and expect to be successful in the game. I think they're going to need to be able to pass the ball more. And I think all of those factors comes back to De'Aaron King and his abilities. And I'm expecting him to be the best player on the field tonight. And I think if he is, I think Miami wins. And if not, I think it's going to be difficult for Miami to win the game. I don't think that they can, like it worked out last week with the running game, just automatically ran through things. And the defense did well. I feel like the defense is going to give up some points tonight. And I feel like the running back is going to come back a little bit, because Louisville will certainly be expecting it and try to find different ways to cut it down a little bit. Although their play needs to be better on their front seven. Mentioned with the linebacker situation, a couple guys could have played better last week. And if they struggle this week, Miami has the ability to expose them. So we'll see what's going on. Orange and Green Blood, glad you're here. I didn't want to wrap this up without you jumping on, so glad you're here. And yeah, Coach Norvell, and everybody get well soon. Anybody that's dealing with some illnesses and friends, family, anybody, hopefully everybody gets well soon. Hopefully everybody's staying as positive as possible. I know it's been very difficult times, but hopefully everybody's doing okay. And yeah, hopefully tonight goes well for Miami. John, appreciate the score updates. 28-7. That's impressive. They're starting to pull away. I think that's definitely interesting. John, curious about obviously not able to watch it, but just curious about Sims. What you're seeing from him? Did he take a step back? Is he struggling, or are there other reasons why Georgia Tech has been struggling? If you want to drop in on that, definitely. I'm sure a lot of people would like to know. I would like to know, because I will try to watch part of it later though, because I'm very interested in that game. Tommy, the one thing about the as far as the passing and run game, the one thing Rhett Lashley always talks about is he says, you've got to pass to score and run to win, and that's his mentality. And I find that interesting. I also, in terms of the passing game, I would expect some trick plays tonight. I think you're going to see some variations. Rhett has been known to do that over his career as a coordinator. I don't know why they would hold it back tonight. I think you'll see it. I understand Florida State's coming up. I understand Clemson's coming up, but based on all the uncertainty with everything, based on where Miami is currently standing with its program, I don't think they have the ability to hold things back in a game like this. I think if they find some abilities to make trick play or have trick plays in the arsenal there, go ahead and use them and take advantage of them. And I would expect that. I don't expect them to just rely on basic plays. I think you'll see some creativity tonight, and hopefully so. I think that's what you're hoping for with the offense. When you talk about spreading it out, playing fast, you want to have all those elements in addition to productivity. Yeah, Richard, that's interesting. UCF are ready for Sims. Yeah, Phil DeCane, glad you're here. Shout out to you. Glad you dropped in on that. Let us know what you thought about that game. It's definitely interesting. Georgia Tech's always an interesting program for Miami to watch for. And find it very intriguing right now as they move away from the triple option there. Okay. What else do we got here? Let me see if we've got some other clips to look at that I haven't showed you yet. Here's a look at Don Chaney Jr. I want to look at him because we talked about Jalen Knight, and he's a guy that I'm very high about. And I know many people are very excited about Don Chaney as well. Taking a look at some clips from, fall practices. You're seeing in some scrimmages here. And also want to look at some high school stuff. I was at his last high school game of his career here at Belen, just because you've heard a little bit about him and just kind of watching a few things that he was able to do at Belen. So I know you guys are excited about Don. I think a little bit more power, a little bit more leg strength, those kind of things in terms of the difference between him and Jalen. Jalen has more speed, but Don is certainly a guy that can run through tackles. He does really well in the weight room numbers and those kind of things. The one thing I'm interested in seeing, you're going to see it right here in this game, running the wishbone offense. It's a lot different than what Miami runs. And so he's going to have to make sure he makes adjustments as he understands the offense. I expect him to be able to do that. I just wonder, just exactly how effective he will be. I think it might take him a little bit, even though we did see that 33-yard run on his third collegiate carry. I think that was great to see. And you see this in the game. This is actually another game here. No, this is it. This is the Southridge game. This is his last one. But there's another game also on here I want to show you guys too. But what you're seeing here is, even though Southridge was certainly ready for him, and that's kind of how all teams were expecting the run, he was able to explode through and get runs, and I thought that was a good sign that he could still get to the outside, get through some tackles, and still have big plays. And I think you saw that. I think you saw it against UAB, just that ability there, and you're seeing him bouncing outside quite a bit. I think he's a guy that could excel in his, with the zone runs there. So And I think it's going to be very interesting. I think it sounds like, based on the way they talk about each other with Don and Jalen, I think they seem to be pretty close in terms of they understand it's a competition, but they also understand that there is probably room for the both of them in the offense. And I think that's a key in terms of position competition. And you see Don here. I think this was the third quarter. He left the game early. His final game at high school. Suffered an injury there. Didn't play the rest of the game. But, yeah, this is another game here with Don in high school where he's able to get going a little bit. But it sounds like they definitely feel like the both of them can get playing time, and also that they are seeing the results of that. And I think even this year, even with a third back in there, but certainly moving forward, once Cam does leave, that there will be an opportunity with just the two of them. So, and I think that they're okay with that. I think, most running backs kind of get used to that at the high school level, even though Don was a feature back. Don was a guy that they actually held back in terms of his carries and his workload, even though he started playing as an 8th grader there. But he was always a guy that, 10, 12, 15 carries, that kind of thing at the high school level quite often, as opposed to, 20, 25, 30 carries that sometimes you see with feature backs at that level. So basically I'm saying he's also used to, same way with Jalen Knighton there at Deerfield, even though he was Broward's all-time leading rusher. Certainly there were some other guys that got the ball as well. So there we go. Okay, Clemson definitely going to do that. Yeah, I'm not sure if people sleep on Chaney. I think people are just excited about Jalen Knighton. I think, depending on your preference, you like one or the other. And certainly both of them had a lot of attention on them in high school. Right around that top 10 recruiting ranking, both of them right there, depending on which networks you looked at. And 24/7 Sports composite rankings compiles all of that. So, yeah, they're right around the same spot in that, right around that 10 mark. So certainly both have abilities. Yeah, Phil, that's definitely true. With these guys, they definitely complement each other just because it is different running styles. And I think what's good about when you have guys with different running styles, if in a game things aren't working with one, you have the ability to go to the other one a little bit more. And I think that's what's good to see. And obviously, if one's able to get going, and you'd like to be able to get more guys going as well, to have really a full complement of pieces to attack with. Sigmund, what do you think of the chances King will come back if he does have a good year and the NFL still sees him as a receiver? That's a good question. So De'Eric was asked about that. So I asked De'Eric, when it felt like the ACC was going to be done with football, I asked him if he was going to come back if the season was canceled. This was in August, around that time where there was a lot of talk of that, all conferences just canceling. And he said he would come back. And then maybe a month later or so, based on the timeline. But he was asked, okay, because this year isn't counting towards eligibility, would you come back next year? And he said he hadn't thought about it. He'll just have to wait and see how things play out. And I guess my takeaway is, I don't think every player is automatically going to come back next year. Not just at Miami, but even if they have eligibility. Because you're talking about guys in their 5th year of college or 6th year even of college. That'll be De'Eric's 6th year next year. I mean, that seems like a lot, and a lot to, even if he's able to do it, a lot of these guys might just feel like it's time to move on. In particular, off the top of my head, Venzel Bulware, if you guys remember, Tennessee transfer a couple years ago, had another year of eligibility remaining where he could have stayed at Miami. And he just decided it was time. And the thing he told me during that interview when he left and why he left, and it wasn't about the NFL draft or anything like that. He just felt like it was time to kind of move on with his career. And you can definitely understand that. So I'm bringing this up because I do think there will be players that will do that. Not necessarily for the NFL draft, but just because, 5-6 years in college is college football, maybe they just feel like it's time. I think De'Eric is correct. Like, I believe what he says in terms of he'll wait and see how this year goes. Whether it's a lot of games that they get to play, all of them, if they're close to winning an ACC title, if he's enjoying himself. I assume this year has been very difficult for him. It's been difficult for everybody, but, losing his father, not being able to be around friends and family as much as he would probably like at this point, although he did go home in the offseason there in Houston. But just being the adjustment, and it's not, I don't even look at it like as a knock against Miami or the program if he moves on. It just might be time, and he might give the NFL a shot. The one thing that stands out to me, I heard him in a podcast, and one of the things that stands out in terms of his career and what he wants to do in his career, he wants to coach. He wants to, figure out or see where his football career goes, whether it's NFL and moving forward. But he definitely wants to coach, and I think he's a guy that's going to look to get into that as soon as whenever his football career is over. And I'm sure he'd like to play quarterback at the next level. Maybe they will shift him to receiver. I know the Senior Bowl has already said that they'll do whatever he wants, and they'll move him around, that kind of thing. So I think it's a wait and see segment. I guess I just feel like in general that players will leave even if they have an extra year of eligibility, just because they're ready to move on. Nothing against programs or anything like that. Just I've always kind of felt like with players leaving early for the draft, I felt like, a lot of guys that leave early, particularly you see a lot in college basketball, where I feel like if they're projected to leave early, everyone expects them, regardless of the season that they have. Maybe there was disappointed. I feel like once players already have it in their mind that they were going to leave after the season, whether they publicly admitted it or not, I feel like it's been tough for those players to pull that back and actually come back an extra year. I feel like once they've already kind of had their mind made up on what they're going to do with their careers, I think they go ahead and go forth with it. I think you've seen that around the country. I'm saying that because I'm sure most college players didn't expect to play 6 years in college. So if you've already figured in your head that you'd go ahead and leave after 4 or 5 years, maybe you do go ahead and do what you originally had planned. Yeah, as far as Rousseau goes, you can't blame him, right? I mean, I never get into the discussion of, or I never have an objection of guys leaving early, to be honest with you. If, with paychecks out there, I don't get into the should they leave or shouldn't they leave. Whatever is best for them, I'm all in favor of, regardless of that. Like I said, if they come or go, I've always just kind of had that mentality. And if people are reviewing, consider Greg a first-round pick, with everything going on with the season, the uncertainties and everything, you can understand why he opted out. And I was actually watching an interview I had with Greg earlier today, kind of looking back on some stuff. But, just the thing with Greg, and I don't know if a lot of people got to see it enough because he only played the 1 year full time for Miami, but he's just a really, and you hear teammates talk about him, and maybe you do understand, but just a really likable guy, really good teammate, just a humble guy. Just different things that a very, very easy guy to root for. A lot of teammates, not just the defensive line, but just, linebackers. And it wasn't just guys he came in with, it could be upperclassmen. Just a lot of guys, really enjoyed playing with Greg. Just one of those positive, humble guys. And you almost don't see that personality all the time in guys that are really good. And, just a real quick, just because you brought it up, Greg, I thought just present that a little bit. So I kind of want to wrap this up a little bit. I know that there's still probably a lot to get to, maybe just kind of summarizing things like this, things I talked about earlier, but I expect De'Eric King to play well tonight. I expect him to be the difference maker. I think he'll be the reason why Miami wins this game. I think you'll see the passing game improve from what they saw last week against UAB. I think look at Brevin Jordan and Mike Harley as two guys to get involved and have productive games. I think if you're looking for maybe an X factor, maybe you're looking at a guy like Mark Pope to really step up. I still think the running game is going to be relied on. I think you're going to look at all three guys get carries, and it'll be interesting to see if one of them's not this will be interesting. If one of them's not performing like last week where they were all doing well and Miami had the lead, are they going to cut it back to only using two? And which two would they be? Will they kind of just go in with the mindset of giving them all an opportunity? I think last week Jalen Knight got in on the fourth series. I think Cameron Harris got the first 3 series. I think that's right there. And then Don Chaney got the 5th right afterwards. And then they kind of worked them in after that. But definitely keep that in mind. So maybe look for that again in the second quarter with Knighton and Chaney getting involved in the running game, getting an opportunity, and depending on how they do, will probably determine how much more playing time they'll get the rest of the game. So keep in mind on that. Keep in mind, number 53 left guard Ja'Kai Clark gets reinserted in the starting lineup after starting 12 games last year. He doesn't start the first game, only 3 snaps, but Usman Traore makes his first start, and now he's back to the bench, and Clark gets inserted in. They feel comfortable in both of them, but if I were to guess, I assume Clark is looking at this as not a trial run, that he wants to take this and start the rest of the way, just like he did last year in the second game, started all the rest of the games after that. Pay attention to that. Definitely keep in mind, with left tackle, I think John Campbell, we're still kind of waiting to see. I know the staff is excited about him, but definitely make sure that 74 is providing that pass protection that D'Eriq King needs to stay in the pocket, feel comfortable, get the ball downfield. And I still think D. Wiggins has a chance to have a really good game as well. Not just Mark Pope or not just Harley, but definitely D. Wiggins. Look for Wiggins to try to get loose downfield. He's a guy, if we're talking about a deep downfield threat, look for Wiggins to maybe get behind the defense a little bit there. Louisville has a strong safety, and Russ Yeast, number 3, performed well last week against Western Kentucky in their win. So keep in mind where number 3 is kind of moving around a little bit on defense. Linebackers, they've got 3 of them that started and played, or they've got 3 guys that particularly to watch for with Etheridge. Avery is there as well. And Burns. And Avery and Burns, their Pro Football Focus ratings weren't as good as you'd like to see if you're a Louisville fan. So maybe there's some ability to attack them, whether it's running or passing with Jordan, with the tight end spots, or getting loose there past that line of scrimmage with the running game. If we're kind of moving forward on the defensive side of the ball, we talked a lot about Miami's offense, but Louisville's offense can put up points as well. Cunningham at quarterback, number 3. Al Blades Jr. said he's a guy that's playing with a lot of confidence, has a good mindset. And he said that's definitely a scary thing to face, or a challenge to face, when a quarterback is playing with a lot of confidence. He's a guy that can throw the ball. He threw for 343 yards, 3 touchdowns in the first game. Had a solid year last year. His touchdown to interception ratio is really good, but he can also run the ball as well, and picked up half a dozen scores last year. So he definitely can run the ball as well. So Miami's going to have their hands full, but they should have a good look at D'Eriq King all offseason or in practices. They should have an idea of maybe how to handle the dual threat quarterback a little bit better than what they're used to in recent years, with Miami quarterbacks not being as mobile as D'Eriq King. Also with the running back situation that Louisville has with Javian Hawkins, 3rd in the ACC last year in rushing. They mixed in Hassan Hall, but Javian is the guy to watch for. Number 10, he's a tough running back. A little bit smaller, but he's fast, can make plays. Once again, Miami's got to stop the run. It talks so much about Miami running the ball, but they've got to be able to stop the run. I'm looking at the linebackers. They've got to play better than last week. I think they could get exposed if they're not playing well. I'm going to be very interested to watch what number 6 does for Miami, Sam Brooks. If they're going to put him in, and he's going to be a key because he's got some athleticism, good speed, ability to make plays. You saw it in the bowl game. He's a guy that challenged Bradley Jennings last week for the playing time. 36 snaps for Bradley Jennings. Sam Brooks had 26. Blake Baker thinks they could be 50-50 this week, but definitely keep an eye on if Jennings isn't playing well, if Zach McLeod doesn't play well, maybe you're starting to see a little bit more of Brooks, although Brooks right now is backing up Jennings on the depth chart. They're at middle linebacker, and McLeod is playing that second, weak side spot. So keep that in mind. Definitely watch the linebacker situation with Miami. Defensive ends are the difference makers. Quincy Roche, Jalen Phillips. That is the reason why Miami's defense has a chance to be good this year, is because I believe that the defensive ends can really disrupt a lot, create a lot of havoc. I think you're going to see even Jalen Phillips improve as the season goes on. I liked what we saw in the first game. Quincy Roche is very solid. He's going to be a guy that can produce. I think he's going to start getting more and more comfortable. This will be another opportunity for him to do well also. If those two are not factors, Miami's going to have a tough time on defense, slowing down this Louisville attack. In the secondary, DJ Ivey, is he going to be better? Is he going to be able to get his head around like was mentioned earlier? He's got to prevent those big plays. He cannot allow touchdowns or the big 25-yard passes, things like that. Corey Couch is trying to take over that starting spot, but he's definitely going to definitely get snaps. only 3 corners now that Christian Williams are gone. Only 3 of the corners that got snaps last week are back. Maybe Isaiah Dunson and Marcus Clark as freshmen make their debuts as that 4th corner, but right now I think it's going to be the 3 corners. Al Blades Jr. in there as well. Al thinks they have can have one of the best secondaries in the country. It is important for them to do well tonight against Tutu Atwell, one of the best receivers in the country, led the ACC in receiving last year and set school records with receiving yards. Miami native, you guys know him, 142 yards last year against Miami, had the big play, had 6 catches. He's a guy that can score from anywhere, plenty of speed, and definitely he's looking to take a jump in his junior year. Definitely someone to watch for. Dre Kirkpatrick, number 7 for Louisville. Definitely a tough matchup as well. Miami has to keep him in mind. He had over 100 yards last week, and so did Braden Smith, another guy at Louisville that made plays last week in the receiving. So definitely keep all those things in mind. It should be a great game. I'm excited. For more information, definitely check out InsideTheU.com for more coverage on the team, the game. We'll have news. There'll be articles as the game goes on. The chat there is great. There's so much interaction. We'll definitely be in on that. And everything post-game interviews, Zoom interviews with players and coaches after the game. It'll be a late night once again. I was up till almost 4 a.m. last week when they had the game, working on post-game stuff. I did a live stream last week. Not sure I'm going to do it this time, but definitely going to keep putting out content on the site. Check out the channel. If you haven't yet, hit the like button. It's a huge help. I appreciate everyone's support. And also another huge help is if you subscribe to the channel. We got to get to 20,000 subscribers. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think we can definitely do it. Hopefully we can do that. And hopefully Miami plays well. We'll have all the instant reaction and quick thoughts on the game afterwards as well. Definitely appreciate everybody once again for stopping by. All the people in here right now. I see you guys, Richard and Mason and Benzo. We got Daryl there. Phil DeCane is here. Orange and Green Blood is always here. Dropping in prediction. Luis is here as well. So definitely appreciate everybody. We're going to wrap this up. Game's only in about 2 hours. Hopefully this gives you a nice little preview of the game. And if you have any questions or any more comments, definitely hit the comment section as well on this. And if you guys want to pick up an Inside the U shirt, like one I'm wearing right now, definitely check out that as well. So definitely appreciate everybody. We'll wrap this up. The first live stream pregame show. Hopefully you guys like this. I'd like to do more of these more often and improve on them as well. So definitely appreciate